Hey there, good people. It is going to be a great night to talk to you and break down some of the big news stories that are out there. And I tell you what, I'm thrilled and blessed to be a part of things here at News Talk. Obviously, you can catch us over on tampadispatch.com. We'll have Robert Harriman tonight, tons of stuff to get to, different stories. Your chats and comments are always welcome, so feel free to jump in with those. We do appreciate all of your feedback. We may even make some time to go through a couple of the mailbag, if you will, lack of a better term. So that's definitely out there as well as an option, because there have been a couple of things that have come through over the last couple weeks. So feel free, again, all those different comments in chats and those kinds of things are welcome. Also, other things too is you can feel free to email me, bjonespops at Gmail, bjonespops at Gmail. If there's a certain topic you want to see us get to, something you don't think we've covered at all, that's definitely out there as well. I'm definitely interested in your feedback and things that you think are interesting, so we kind of stay on track with that. So yeah, it's great. I see you out there. Some of you on Facebook, a couple of you on YouTube, that kind of thing. So there's a couple different spots you can catch us on. Please, and again, if you could like the content that we're doing, different stories that we're trying to give you a little synopsis of the news week to week, some of the big highlights, and also trying to just include things that you haven't seen or heard about, most likely. Like, share, subscribe, those kinds of things. That helps us. We've been very blessed. Obviously, the News Talk subscriber count has already crossed over 300. So that's actually been very exciting. So tonight we'll talk a little bit about, we'll get into probably Australia and maybe some COVID stuff a little bit with Robert Harriman. He'll be bringing some of that to the table. Definitely some crazy stories that are going on there in Australia that we should all be aware of. I was really kind of shocked by, just to give you a little preview, Harvard University has hired an atheist chaplain. That's probably a little unorthodox, something you may not have heard of. There's an interesting article from Nick Cohen. Basically, Nick Cohen basically is talking about the restructuring of the economy to meet climate change demands. If you haven't seen the LA Times article, obviously Larry Elder is running for governor in California. Obviously, there's a recall election there, and he's been called the face of white supremacy, which is not the most friendly thing to say to a black guy. We make a touch on that, give you some of the quotes and some of the details from that. And we may have some other options, things that, more just like fun, random topics. I have a crazy, weird news story thing kind of stashed away for Bob, too. So he tends to not quite know what to think about some of the nonsense that I'm doing. So I see you folks out there, Stacy and Shannon in particular. I see you popped up on the old Facebook stream. Good to see you there. Obviously, we're on multiple pages and streams, so it's not always easy to see you, so I apologize. But definitely feel free to leave a comment. If I don't catch it this time around, I will definitely come back around, answer your comments. So let me get to just a fun little pop culture-y thing before we get to some of the heavy news, and that was I did finally see Shang-Chi. They try to change the name on us there, folks. So movie's okay. It's not a top rank, as the many of the mainstream critics called a triumph. These incredible things that was I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, it's okay. It's a great film in people's minds, but not in practicality. So hey, listen, hey Pat, I see you. Great to see you. Thanks for being with us tonight. And send my best to Dennis as well. You've always supported the channel, supported all of my work, and definitely appreciate all of that. So Marvel has, over the years, given us different things. I think that this movie is kind of got a lot of interesting ideas, and it's kind of all muddled together in a mess. It's a couple of good martial art fight scenes, a very strange kind of discombobulated Pokemon meets fantasy wrap up at the end, and then this really horrible, boring middle. So that's my quick review. You can go over to my Pops channel. There are links below on the YouTube stream here that you can catch that and see that for yourself, my full breakdown on that, which is about 15-20 minutes. So it's a fair amount of time. So, but the world's weird. The world is weird, is it not? So we're going to have Bob come in here in a couple minutes. And we are actually going to kick off with some of the crazy that's going on. Obviously, I don't know what is going on in Australia, man. It seems like this is crazy that we're flip-flopping, not just from like Middle East stuff to COVID, but also Middle East stuff to Australia. So hopefully you're staying safe and you're being smart, things that you could do to protect your family in this crazy time. So there is a couple other stories that I will at least make mention to. There's a very strange story that I covered over, again, TampaDispatch.com. Mary Sue is kind of a left-leaning, leftist, feminist website. And they wrote an article about title basically, will teachers ever forgive us? And it's basically a very misleading story about COVID and the impact on teachers and that kind of thing. So again, TampaDispatch.com. But let's get to the meat of the show. Bring Bob on here. There he is. How are you doing, my friend?
My brother, you doing all right?
Oh, very blessed. It's there's more to talk about than we could ever probably tolerate talking about. I mean, I think we probably could do a 3-hour stream and not even probably scratch the surface of some of the stuff that's out there. So let's kick it off with Australia, though, because there's a lot to be said here. I think that the I have like 4 or 5 pieces of this story to share. This is the headline that I caught kind of at the end of Friday as I was driving. This is South Australia. It's one of the states, basically not all of Australia, but it's definitely being adopted across Australia because they're limiting travel. They're using basically a facial recognition COVID app. And I wanted to run down a couple of the details here that if you are basically asked to be on home quarantine, they will enforce it, and users will be required to download this app. And the users are sent a message at random times and must respond within 15 minutes, verifying their location and identity using a facial recognition and geolocation. In other words, Big Brother will know where you are at all times, and no one can pretend to be you. Bob, what was your initial thoughts when you heard that sort of insanity?
I was thinking Australia taking another turn. Yes, you're right. It's one state. I don't know if other states are doing this. They may be. There's 7 or 8 states in Australia. And the other thought was, please don't come over here. Please don't bring that kind of stuff over here.
Yeah.
And this is how bad it is, right? If they contact you arbitrarily, and you have 15 minutes to contact them back with a photograph of where you are. And if you're not in the right place, or if you don't respond within that 15 minutes, what happens? The police are called right away. Australian police are very big on COVID enforcement. Even in South Australia.
We showed a photo last week of the woman basically being strong-armed to the ground.
Yeah. In South Australia, it's so bad that they have, what do you call it? COVID marshals are required for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, we're going to get. Yeah, I want to get to the COVID marshals. Before I do, let's finish breaking down this app a little bit. This is the home quarantine trial. So this is basically an article that was written through Australian ABC that gives the folks there in Australia the information on how this will work. So you will have to basically prove that there's a place that you can isolate during the quarantine period, and must also be fully vaccinated. So they're moving towards vaccine mandates. And if they decide to quarantine you, you have to kind of prove where you'll be. It talks about the geolocation and all that on the software, things we talked about. So this is, we don't tell them how often or when. On a random basis, they will have to reply within 15 minutes. So you have no idea how this is going to work. 14 days. So they put you in the situation, you're basically on this sort of LoJack app tracking, geolocation tracking system for 2 weeks. And then, as Bob said, on top of all of this, because this is not even enough, we have to go further. And let me try to keep up. And it's just this, we could do an hour on Australia. This is crazy.
Oh, yeah. Full shows.
Yeah, I have to switch screens so you can see the other tab load.
I actually feel kind of bad for regular viewers because Australia appears to be the main topic each week because there's just so much more fodder to talk about. They're just amazing to observe. It's like, what on earth?
Right. Well, I think that obviously the mainstream press and a lot of folks on YouTube and the news are covering the general COVID conversation. They're covering a lot of statistics. There's covering a lot of studies and those kinds of things. I mean, we can cover some of those things globally. You know those things off the top of your head. But I think when it comes to this, I'm not sure this is getting the attention it needs. I want to make sure people understand. And as you said, how do we keep stuff like this from coming here? Well, first thing we have to do is what's actually going on. So this is the quote, activities that require a COVID marshal. A COVID marshal is required for the following: on-site purchase and consumption of food or beverages, indoors or outdoors, religious or faith-based ceremonies, other than weddings or funerals, supermarkets and hardware stores, gatherings of more than 50 people at residential premises, distribution centers, gymnasiums and fitness centers, swimming pools used by the public, sporting clubs, any activity where COVID management plan is required, public assemblies, and any operation that may be defined by the state coordinator. So you have to have a COVID marshal, right? So you're going to have a designated police marshal that has to be present for anything that meets this criteria. Now, I didn't really dive into it, but it's a job creator. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit. So you could be at a church service or a gymnasium or a store, and some 16-year-old kid who's been assigned to be the COVID marshal, who went through a 30-minute course, can approach you if you're not following all COVID regulations and ask you to social distance or put on a mask or whatever. And if you choose not to, guess what the COVID marshal does?
He calls the real police.
That's right. That's exactly it.
You're going to get arrested. As we showed you last week, folks, they have no problem wrestling you to the ground in Australia. So again, the age criteria for the COVID marshal begins at 16. The training is basically 30 minutes. Talks about their safety protocol, what they have to do. And again, everything from the grocery store to hardware stores to your churches, your fitness centers, swimming pools, anywhere. And then I love the last line. It said, any operation that may be defined by the state coordinator. So the state coordinator actually could just deem something as requiring a COVID marshal. Yeah. So this is the element. You shared something with me, Bob. I'm going to try to switch over, and you know what? Sometimes if you don't laugh at it for a moment, it's just like you just can't take it in. So it was titled, "It's funny because it's true. The world's largest prison looks like this from space." There you go.
It's off of it's a meme from Reddit.
Yeah.
And what else needs to be said, right?
Right. So you got limit transportation, limit travel, anything that involves quarantine 2 weeks or more in your house. You're tracked on an app. Anywhere you go, you can be beeped. Within 15 minutes, you have to respond on that app that recognizes your face. Everywhere you go, whether it be to the market, to church, to work out, there's COVID marshals ready to tattletale on you if you don't comply with whatever they think the rules are, because who knows what some of these folks may act. I mean, we've seen the power of authority get out of hand in our country. I can't imagine what Australia will be like, because it's just been unhinged with the stuff that's been going on there. So I don't know, folks, have you been hearing about Australia? Is this something that you guys have been hearing about or seen on the TV? I really haven't seen a ton of it. But Australia, man, this is nuts. Imagine going to the grocery and having some 16-year-old kid telling you, hey, Bob, your mask is too low, man. You're like, no, my mask is fine. They're like, no, it's too low. He calls the cops, man, wrestle you to the ground.
Bro, so what would it take, or the listening audience, does anybody want to see Brandon take this 30-minute course and become a COVID marshal?
Oh, come on, man. Don't even make me. Can I even do? Oh, there is an online course.
Yeah.
Wow. What's the right price for me to do the COVID training? It should be a fundraiser. So we should do a PayPal donation. get 50 people to donate $1 for $50, and I become a COVID Marshal in Australia.
Your little badge, and
I put that on my resume right there, like COVID Marshal, baby, COVID Marshal. I don't know, man. I don't know. What are all the rules of things that you have to do though? It's not just a test. I don't care about the test, but it's like promote and take practical steps to ensure people are physically distancing 1.5 meters, ensure that all the safe plans and management plans. It's like, oh man, I could not in good faith do this kind of stuff to people, man. It's just
there's no way. It's like,
and it's like everywhere, like anywhere there's just 50 people, any church, any workout center, anywhere you go in Australia, man, COVID Marshals, man, job creation is probably how we'll see some of that being built. As crazy as that seems as well. I don't know that I even can just, what do you do? Well, what you do is you go on to crazier, because how could the world be crazier than Australia right now, you might ask, folks? I teased it early in the show. If you happen to get my little intro, the world is so crazy that Harvard University has hired a new chaplain. And you may ask, well, what's the news about that? It's news because there he is. Greg Epstein, your atheist chaplain of Harvard University. Yep, atheist. Bob, you sent this to me. What was your first impression when you saw the headline? This is from The Guardian, but it's been picked up on a couple other sites.
Yeah. I was really surprised. I mean, if you look at Harvard's history, it was started by Puritans, and their first dozen presidents or so were all ministers or pastors or whatever. And it's just so amazing how it's turned tail on its tradition. I mean, granted, over the centuries, but yeah, I mean, this is about as extreme as it gets. So you have a atheist over, I don't know how many pastors or clergy people they have, 30, 40, whatever, of all different religions and whatever. The atheist is running the roost.
Yeah. So the second paragraph, obviously, Bob, the first paragraph actually echoes a lot of what you just said about the origins. They were Puritan colonists. It was actually founded to educate clergymen. And then it says Epstein, Greg Epstein, he is the author of Good Without God, What a Billion Non-Religious People Do Believe. And it has been the university's humanist chaplain since 2005 before and unanimously elected by his fellow campus chaplains as the University Chaplain Organization's new president. So he's been there for a while, and they have actually promoted him. So basically, this sounds like the church problem to me. Like, I can't imagine different denominations not wanting the other denominations to be in charge. So we're just said our solution is we'll just choose the atheist, the humanist, and that's what we'll go with there. So we won't have anyone that's principled like us at all. We'll fight over denominations or what separates us. This is his quote. I want to support students in the university community together around the fact that it's been an extraordinary trying time, and almost anybody could be expected to have lost a little faith in humanity in recent years. All right, sure. That's that's kind of nihilistic and pessimistic, but okay. We have a lot that divides us theologically, but we have a tremendous amount in common when it comes to our shared desires to support the human beings in our community as they try to live lives of meaning and purpose in a world that can sometimes threaten to rob us of those senses, regardless of our beliefs. So, I mean, this is all fine. It's very global, high level stuff. He talks about his priority is assuring that he and his colleagues serve the university's most marginalized communities. There it is. There's always some sort of like, what's your priority? So I want to be a positive force and against the vision of Harvard that some people have as an institution of privilege and prestige over justice and equity. We want them to feel, regardless of their beliefs, that Harvard is equal for them, and that the better world we're all trying to build at Harvard involves justice and equity for people like them. So, I mean, obviously, no one disagrees with that on the surface. The problem is the word equity and not equality. So I think everyone would understand. We all believe in equality and treating all the students the same and being fair, but equity is the equitable outcome. So I'm not quite sure how that works for the chaplain president of the university. I don't know. What do you know?
No, I don't. But the other thing I thought of when I first saw this, and I skimmed the article, was very, very man-centered, right? It's all very man-centered. The students' comments are all very man or human centered, and I makes me wonder. I don't know if there's any Christian clergy underneath the humanist here, but I would love
It
to hear.
sounds like because it referred to that they voted him in.
Right. I would love to hear what they have to say. I would love to interview one of them.
Well, that's an opportunity for you. So they quoted some students, but they don't quote any. Yeah, they don't quote any of the other chaplains or faith leaders at the school.
Yeah.
And I don't have any other quotes. I was reading about his book. Let me. It just says, this is his book, Good Without God, What a Billion Non-Religious People Do Believe. And it's a provocative and positive response to Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, and other new atheists. Good Without God makes a bold claim that for what non-believers do share and believe. Author Greg Epstein, the humanist chaplain at Harvard, offers a worldview for non-believers that dispenses with the hostility and tolerance of religion prevalent in national bestsellers like God is Not Great and The God Delusion. Epstein's Good Without God provides a constructive, challenging response to these manifestos by getting to the heart of humanism and its positive belief in tolerance, community, morality, and good without having to rely on the guidance of a higher being. So basically, he's a humanist more than an atheist based on the way he's approaching his book. And I don't know how much of this was written in 2010, so it's 10 years ago. He was at the university for 5 years before he wrote the book. And there is a difference. I mean, I know that it doesn't seem like much of a difference, but, the humanists tend to be a lot more pro-life, right? So they're pro-human. So you tend to be a little bit more defensive about, we should be killing the next group of humans. So like flippantly, whereas the atheists don't tend to, they get into the closest thing I can get to where we can align with them as believers is a lot of the new atheists and a lot of the humanists definitely have an allegiance to non-violence, a lot of those type of principles, anti-war and those kinds of things, which is where a lot of believers align. So, but yeah, story took me by surprise, Bob. You got me pretty good. I usually can surprise you, but that one actually surprised me. So I was like, oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Well, sure.
But it's Harvard. Well, I mean, it's Harvard. I mean, how do they surprise you anymore? Just a month ago, it was birthing people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can do a whole section on the language changes and stuff that they're doing to change language in our country, because that's been like really, right. Really strange for me.
This is the premier educational institute probably on the planet. And they're talking about birthing people.
Yeah. Well, how about more language analysis from the left? This is an article I put up on Tampa Dispatch today. Nick Cohen, he likens global warming skeptics to slave traders, dangerous fools, while hiding in his Marxism. So this is an article that Cohen had put out, and he basically is talking about global warming deniers, and they dominate the right wing, they dominate politics. It's a very ambiguous use of the term deniers because it just means we don't agree with him. And he goes through abolishing the slave trade, Lord Lawson, different things like that. And then basically saying that we're people that are global warming deniers are the same as dangerous fools, and history is not going to treat them well if they're remembered at all. And then this is where it gets interesting for me. The $1 billion spent by the fossil fuel industry on propaganda and its acceptance by know-nothing elements on the right caused incalculable damage. They might have followed Margaret Thatcher, who warned in 1989 of CO2 emissions leading to climate change, quote, more fundamental and more widespread than anything we have known. She's referring to carbon emissions at the time. The desire of the business to protect profits and the vanity of politicians and pundits who saw themselves as dissidents, fighting the consensus rather than the fanatics, enabling destructions, help to waste 2 decades of valuable time. In other words, no one's done anything since that time because everyone's basically corrupt. Every argument they advance has been disproved. Is that true? Bob, do you think that every argument about global warming and climate change have been disproved? Any critic? I don't agree with that statement.
No, not at all.
I think that there's a lot of graphs and a lot of data, and I can always go back to the Michael Mann climate gate, the email gate, and all that stuff that happened less than, I don't know if it might be 10 years, but it's definitely within the last decade or so, where they basically were faking data, deleting outrageous readings and things like that on probes and whatever. So right-wing denialism appears to be buried so deep in the dustbin of history it can never be recycled. And then he receives his true, and I call him his Marxist leanings, because that's how it is. Yet there's a nervousness among the impressively large number of conservative politicians who are serious about pushing for net zero. They are pleading with their colleagues to understand the advantages to consumers and businesses that a determined remaking of the economy would bring. There it is. That's why I put it in bold. The conservative environmental network is already in a fight with a small group of right-wing MPs who claim the, quote, poorest will pay the highest price for net zero fantasies, even though there's no measure is more likely to reduce fuel poverty than a government home insulation drive. That battle will only intensify. So in other words, if you don't agree with the way they want to restructure the global economy, they want to rechange and spend trillions of dollars on different things for a 1 degree, 2 degree change over like 100 years, then you're the problem. In the dustbin of history, you're like a slave trader. That's it. And that's what he makes. And the article goes on. He continues to make more. These deniers. They basically mirror the defenders of slavery 230 years ago. I mean, it's just the language.
Does he call them shapeshifters?
No, he doesn't use that term. Here's what he says. He says, this comparison isn't harsh. One day the attack on climate science will be seen as shocking as the defense of human bondage. Indeed, the day should have long passed. In other words, we are already slave traders in his eye. We are already that evil in his eye. They are overwhelmingly old men, and in the case of Lawson, a very old man. So that's more of the reference to the slave trading type stuff. So I don't know. So, okay, I wanted to end with this because I think this is really telling. So one thing I've noticed on the left, and I've been really studying this in the comic book industry of all things. I do see some of you folks there on Facebook, by the way. Thank you for joining us, and YouTube. So this is an article about global warming, and he basically has this slave trading analogy. He wrote this article. It got picked up by all the big papers there in Europe, especially The Guardian. And he layers it at the end, and he says, he starts mentioning Boris Johnson. It remains as an open question as to whether Boris Johnson secretly shares a denialist intent. Now, he remembers, he is saying anyone that has a denialist intent, anyone that does not see climate change and global warming the way he does, in the way the newspaper does, they printed this, you're a slave trader. You're as evil monster as those that support human bondage. The conservative environmentalists look on to him with approval as he prepares to host the COP26, COP26, whatever that means, climate change conference in November. In other words, he's calling a shot to Boris. Boris, you're going to go to this climate meeting in November. I'm saying if you're going to keep your denialist things quiet or not, and you're going to be called a slave trader, cue the protesters, cue the signs, cue the outrage and the likeness of Boris Johnson to a slave trader or worse, because you don't believe in their solutions reshaping the global economy and all the solutions or different things that have been proposed by the Greta Thunberg type wing of climatology and global warming hysterics. Bob, how do you feel about all this, man? That's some language, and that's something.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's a good writer, but I'm
just like, he's a good writer.
The thing is,
he's at least honest.
Right, and I can always speak for myself. I'm sure you could speak for yourself. I don't know anybody that's this grand science denier. Not one person who doesn't think that climate doesn't change. The question is often, how much does human activity have to do with it? I can guarantee you, I could ask Mr. Cohen if with no prep, Mr. Cohen, what study makes you believe? Right? They're all about science, right? What study makes you believe that human activity is causing the hurricanes in New York City and whatever. He
Bob,
couldn't name anything.
I tried to watch. There's a film called Day After Tomorrow. Do you remember Day After Tomorrow? Basically, it's kind of like the Dennis Quaid plays the scientist who says the Arctic is going to warm, so you have all that cold air that comes down. It disrupts the sea currents. So he's saying it's going to be hundreds, if not thousands of years, and of course it happens immediately. And that the premise of the movie is basically everyone's covered in snow like instantly. That's the premise of it, right? So when I've interacted with the folks that are really as extreme as Mr. Cohen, because I'm with you. I don't think most people that are Democrats and most people that are liberal want the entire world economy changed, but they care about the environment. They think we could all be smarter with our cars and emissions and that kind of thing. And most people on the right are not crazy climate deniers like he's trying to say. They're people like you. They're looking at data. They're looking at graphs and charts, and they're going, well, what are the solutions we can do, right? Can we get greener? Can we? And you know what the irony is with all of this, and even during the Trump administration, which will shock people, but our emissions went down.
Yep.
Our usages went down. Things got cleaner. Humans want to survive. They want to evolve in ways to make things better. And I know we're not going to agree on every single solution, but calling people evil slave traders for not agreeing with you and your solution is a little absurd, especially because if you remember last week, and I posted the clip, folks, you can catch it on our News Talk. And again, if you go over to the News Talk YouTube page, you can find the clip where the lady was basically attacking air conditioning as evil and racist. She's calling for cooling justice, where we restructure cities with a lot of white paint and plant trees. I don't know many cities want to sign up for that as a plan in the South in America. Yeah. And how are you going to deal with any third world countries where people will just die if we don't have certain? I mean, we need to figure out ways to keep humans alive, not respond erratically. Bob?
Yeah. And you know, when I do talk to somebody with Mr. Cohen's beliefs, it's typically I ask them, well, what do you want to be done?
Yeah.
Typically they can't. I mean, I'm willing to listen. Then I'm going to ask them, how does it get done? Who's going to pay for it? How much will it cost? You know, if you don't think the economics of this doesn't count, what do you want us to? You want us to all live like in Kenya? I mean,
one of my solutions is I think there really needs to be some evaluation of, okay, maybe forget about global warming, but just the idea of the economic impact of we should probably have a beach expansion project in Florida where we don't build so close to the water and continue to see millions of dollars of damage with winds and flood every single year with different hurricanes, or at least with every few years. So forget about global warming for a minute, just the idea that why can't we have Florida just have bigger beaches? So we would just have certain areas that become, not up for build. I'm okay with at least having conversations about these. Right. Why are we not looking at the levee systems that are used in like places like New Orleans to say, we really think we have flood areas? Well, are we doing this kind of thing? No, we're not. We're talking about transferring trillions of dollars in these mythical programs that we don't have no frame of reference. We have no idea who oversees them. We have no idea what governments will do. And then you have, of course, the boogeyman in the room is, you have India and China who they're not following any rules.
No, because their economies are running on quote unquote all cylinders. And that last thing they need is to start, that kind of crazy bureaucracy that's going to destroy what's left of their economies.
Well, folks, tell us what you think. Pop me a comment. Hopefully I'll catch it. I think I'm hooked in here with all of our comments. We definitely love your feedback and thoughts on the story. What are some of your solutions? What are some of the things that we could do better? I think emissions are getting better. I think the price of electric vehicles and things, I would love to see deregulation, to see nuclear power being revisited and seeing plants and upgrades. And that way, I'm a little disappointed to see some of the drilling and fracking and natural gas reserve stuff being handled the way it's been handled. But, listen, I'm more or least willing to have these conversations, and I surely don't like being called an evil slave trader because I don't agree with Mr. Cohen.
And the thing that's interesting is if I'm old enough to remember as a teenager in the 1970s, Los Angeles was like China now. It was like that was always the thing we mocked them about. They had all the smog and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Smog was nuts.
Yeah, you just don't hear about that anymore because of, I'm going to say it, because of capitalism and the way we run our economy. Things getting taken care of without all this ridiculous intervention. So,
well, and the problem is too, some of the scientists that we're listening to don't have the credibility that we're supposed to have, right? So, and Google, folks, you have to Google it. I don't have it pulled up. There's a famous Newsweek analysis in the mid 70s. I actually believe it is in 1975, where the thing of the day was global cooling. It was the new ice age was coming because of global cooling. So some of the exact same scientists that are doing all of this are now telling us the opposite again, day after tomorrow.
I mean, and there's a timeline for that stuff, right? In the
Sure.
70s,
Sure.
In the 70s, it was the next ice age.
Yep.
In
They were going to put black soot down to control burn, like control melt. There was going to be so much ice.
I think it was 1989. The UN said the world was going to end in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Al Gore said in 2004 it was going to end in 2016.
Yep.
And now AOC in her latest prediction
said 12 or 13 years is all we had left.
Something like that, yeah. So,
let's move on because there's more crazy. That's not all the crazy we have. We have more crazy.
Yeah.
It is crazy, isn't it? So, all right, listen. I don't even know what Larry Elder is running on. But right now there's a recall in California, folks. Gavin Newsom has not made friends. If you don't know much about California, they love to dance around their COVID numbers because they had all these shutdowns, manipulation of which businesses were essential and not. They've ruined so many businesses, especially in minority communities. There's these swaths of areas where Asian and Black communities had all these businesses, some of them for just decades, and they were shut down. And of course, Gavin Newsom is under this recall, and Larry Elder's kind of thrown his name in the ring. We know Larry Elder as basically a conservative radio host. And I kid you not, this is actually from the LA Times. I could not believe the racism that's on display from this writer and the LA Times. And then again, Erica D. Smith gets the credit for the writer. Yeah, she's a piece of work. She hates Larry Elder. We're going to get to that. So Larry Elder is the black face of white supremacy. You've been warned. I kid you not. Now, first, I do want to say Erica is a Black lady. So, yeah, we get to her. So, just so you know. Ads. Okay. Larry Elder smiled with the smug smile of a Black conservative who could very well be liberal California's next governor. Where do you start with the damage Gavin Newsom has done to the state that we both love? I guess he's being quoted. He leaned forward to gaze across the room of white Republicans who had come to hear him speak in Orange County. And it has more quotes from Larry Elder. But that's not what's interesting about the story. He's doing different things. But this is the analysis from the folks that are on this. So this says political consultant. Notice it doesn't say Democrat or liberal or leftist. I don't think Kerman Maddox is objective. Larry Elder goes out of his way to be at odds with leadership in the Black community and at odds with the thinking of the Black community. How racist that is, Bob? That it's the leaders of that Black community and the thinking of the Black community, to think of them as one homogenous group that have to think exactly the same is so racist. It's so disgusting. And these people get a pass. And I can't stand it.
Yeah. He doesn't conform to Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, Maxine Waters, and that whole crew. And they hate it. They hate him for that. And they hate him because he's a threat. He's really a threat. And besides paying for you to become the COVID marshal, I would love to pay. I would love to pay to see Larry Elder debate Gavin Newsom. I don't agree with Elder on everything, but there's
zero chance there'll ever be a debate. They will blame COVID. They will blame COVID to prevent that from ever happening. There's no chance.
Gavin Newsom would show up totally unarmed. He would have no chance.
Yeah, if you have not heard Larry Elder speak, if you've not heard, just go to YouTube and you put his name in. You can hear him eloquently discuss his upbringing. He grew up in the inner city. just basically as a classic American bootstrap story, pulling himself out of poverty. Talks about the struggles with his father and the broken home, and trying to reconcile with his dad, put aside his own anger that was just eating him alive, and all these kinds of things. I don't know much about his radio show and some of the stuff, because I've been out of the loop with that kind of stuff. I don't care about all that, but I know that part of Larry Elder I do know and respect. Anyway, so this is another quote again, and Kerman Maddox is also. Let me switching screens on this thing, Bob. It's just so frustrating.
Yeah.
Because you have to close a screen to add a screen. So hang on. I want to just make sure people understand. So I don't want you folks to take my word on it. So, hey, say, Brandon, back up. Hey, Brandon, pull that up. Let me see. So here's Erica Smith. So this is the LA Times. This is Erica Smith. She's the columnist. This is her role at the LA Times. I can't imagine having a budget, Bob, that we could afford to pay someone to, quote, write about the diversity of people and places across California. That's her job, right? These are her articles. This is what she's contributed. Larry Elder says he is not the face of white supremacies. His fans make it hard to believe. Larry Elder draws fire for N-word comedy clip. You can't use certain words even if it's in comedy. Here's the blackface article that we've been discussing. And then it's about mandating vaccines and things of that nature. And then, of course, loving Simone Biles. All right, so let me.
Well,
go ahead.
Clearly, by looking at that, you can see that Larry Elder is a threat. Article
Yes.
after article after article.
All right, so let me show you folks, just so you don't have to take my word on it.
I don't think he's going to win.
This is Mr. Maddox.
I think Newsom's
Mr. Maddox. That's him. He's the leader that they quoted as speaking for all black people. That was that man. So we'll make sure you see what we're dealing with. And I mean, I just can't imagine. I can't believe that they treat people this way. But all right, so let me go back to here. This is a state senator. We have been having a series of real uncomfortable discussions about systemic racism and institution across the state, about how to really peel back the layers of ignorance and ineptitude so that we can deal with them in very real ways. And Larry Elder is someone who just fundamentally doesn't believe that systemic racism exists. You're right. None of us do. We don't believe what you're wanting to do. Peel back is the key word there in that phrase. This is the critical theory elements. I know critical race theory is the one that makes the buzz for schools, but all critical theory is about an activist role in peeling back elements of the system because it's racist. Well, we don't believe you. We don't believe you. We don't think that every single element of all of these systems are rooted in racism. And Larry Elder echoes that and is a major threat to these people. And I think Gavin Newsom's in a lot more trouble than I thought he would be, because these people have really come after Elder.
Well, that's why I think they are getting so afraid. Newsom's got more money than you can even dream of right now. Everybody is funding him just to make sure he doesn't get recalled. So they're really, that get out the vote type thing is going on heavy duty. The last thing they want is a black conservative as the governor of California.
I want to make sure I'm clear too, because I want to be fully transparent with how this Erica Smith is so manipulative, folks. This is several paragraphs down in these articles. This is where if you scroll down articles on the internet or you have to really get down deep, and you get into what they really think and believe, and you get into the dirty, muddy stuff. She's saying he was on Tavis Smiley's talk show recently, and quote, this is her writing, that he does not care much about black people. This is Elder's quote, though. She says, he does not care about black people. I believe that many policies that have been implemented by the left, often with the best of intentions, have disproportionately negative effect on black America. Because he has said, even if you've had good intentions, there are many policies. He doesn't say all policies. He's not saying that we have certain things but he's saying certain things have not gone well. I gotta be honest, certain things have gone for all America. Forget about just black America. But because he said that, he doesn't care about black people, Bob. He doesn't care.
How dare he? How dare he? I mean, why who is this lady again? Whatever her name is.
Erica Smith.
Why doesn't she interview Elder?
Oh, she says he won't return their call. I'm not going to get into the. He said, well, it's the LA Times, so I'm not sure. I think that if I were Elder, I would not return her call and risk being taken out of context. I would ask for questions to be sent over, and I will respond to those questions, or I will do a live thing that cannot be edited. That would be my.
But if she had all these, all these harsh feelings toward him, why didn't she do it when he was just a radio show guy?
Yeah. I love that she has so little respect. Again, she is so racist too. So this is further down. Got to keep going deeper into the mud, Bob. We got to dig deep. You know, these articles are written.
Well, I could see it from a distance. He's the Black Trump.
He's a Black Trump, baby. So this is another South LA activist. He would be a disaster for the Black community. We would suffer greatly. He's the Black Trump, and I'm speaking as his friend. Then he says their friendship is actually strained. Then she says there's also a fear of how the Republican Party would use Elder, governor of the bluest state in the U.S., which I'm not sure is. I've seen the numbers for New York and Massachusetts, but okay. Black Trump, and he has no mental capacity to think for himself. The Republicans will just use him, Bob. He'll just be a tool.
No, and Larry Elder he won't let anybody treat him as a tool. I have no doubt about that. He's a very independent thinker, and he'll take care of it. But to say California is the bluest state, I mean, some of the cities in Northern California are just as red can be. So,
just like the rest of America. Get away from the cities. There's these huge swaths of areas that are the opposite party. So anyway, crazy on all fronts, crazy on all topics. So, all right, now we get to play. Where does Bob want to go next? So let me see. What do you want to do next, Bob? You had an RSV update for me. I'm not quite sure I understood what was going on with RSV. You said there's this outbreak thing going on with RSV. Well, catch me up on that stuff too.
Well, in case the audience isn't aware, RSV, or see if I can pronounce it properly, respiratory syncytial virus. I may be pronouncing it wrong. It's a common virus, particularly in the wintertime. It's pretty mild for infections in adults. However, in kids, it can be pretty devastating. Well, with all the lockdowns and quarantines and all that, particularly the countries I'm going to talk about are New Zealand and Australia. And they essentially last year saw almost 0.001% influenza cases just last year. And same with RSV.
Yeah.
Well, part of the problem with that is, and I'm sure other countries are going to start feeling it too, is there's a thing called immunity debt. And so you have all these kids that aren't being exposed to anything during this period of time.
Right.
And now it's just spreading like wildfire because they're immunologically naive, basically. And New Zealand and Australia, but New Zealand's more pronounced, are seeing all kinds of crazy numbers of this disease in the kids. It can be linked to, being, sheltered and kept away from all society for, all of 2020.
All right. I mean, we always talk about some of the demographic issues in the middle of the pandemic, suicide rates, especially among young girls, suicide attempts, basically all of teens, the lack of socialization impacts. We've definitely seen a rise in, drug use and overdose, different things of that nature. But something like RSV has kind of gone on the radar screen. And you're right. If people are not being exposed to this stuff naturally, how long until we're facing a different, I don't want to say a pandemic per se, but a different sort of public health issue that we would not have normally faced? Are there other viruses and other bacteria that we should be concerned about?
No, I think my prediction is we're probably maybe we'll see a heavy flu season this year. It'll be a double whammy.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
All right.
and I mean, who knows though? Who really knows?
Okay.
Because
Well,
I
I'm glad
mean,
we got the update.
even
Right.
flu here, even flu in this country is down so dramatically. It's unbelievable. Never thought
Oh
I'd
yeah,
see it like that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, do you think is that being attributed to misdiagnosis, or you think it's just the fact that, I mean, I'm more of the opinion that the priority is obviously with the COVID and pneumonia cases, and that we just don't do the testing that needs to get done to diagnose influenza.
Well, that may be part of it. When I did work at a local lab here, COVID tests were priority, and the influenza testing really dropped.
Right.
So you may be onto something. But
Yeah,
I
anecdotal,
can't,
folks.
yeah,
I have no.
can't,
It's more of like a theory. It doesn't.
can't
It doesn't
verify
make a
it.
lot. Obviously, the COVID and the pneumonia is going to be the priority. So it seems like that would obviously make sense to maintain that type of diagnoses. Whereas the flu, it's like, well, if it's not those things, then they probably have the flu. But we're not going to run another swab on this poor human being. So, Bob, I had to ask you, and I think you brought it up. I don't know. We were talking offline. I ended up with. I thought, well, how's the best way to get to this? Because we were saying. The story just kind of popped up and kind of came out of that conversation. So I found this. I don't know if you saw this or not. It shouldn't be a surprise that Fox nearly sweeps the top 100 highest rated cable telecasts in August. It's no surprise that Fox is at the top. They kind of run that whatever. And what was weird for me, as we were talking about this, I found this story because I said, well, what are the ratings? Because obviously the most watched show is Tucker Carlson. Total audience of 3.3 million viewers, followed by Hannity at just over 3 million. So really not that much of a difference. Let's say 300,000 in a month. So you're talking about, let's just say ballpark 10, 15,000 a night. Not that much of a difference. But we were talking, what has happened with Sean Hannity? He's like non-existent. Like no one cares. Like I haven't heard anything. I mean, look, I don't watch any cable channels right now, and you can vouch for me. In years, I don't watch cable. Like cable channel news is a no-no. To me, Fox is more of a four-letter word than MSNBC is. That's how much I despise Fox. CNN is so ridiculously fraudulent and lacks any responsible reporting that they're a complete waste of my time. And then I cover stuff just to the internet, and every now and again there'll be a clip. I haven't heard anyone show talking about. Tucker comes up all the time, right and left, liberal lefty shows, Tim Pool and right of Tim Pool, Tucker Carlson. He's interviewed, he shows up. I think he's just sat down with Dave Rubin here recently. Where's Hannity? What has happened? Where Carmen Sandiego? Where in the world is Sean Hannity? How does he have 3 million viewers and no one cares?
Yeah. Well, he's been around the block for a long time, but I think he has a history of being number two, right? For all those years on Fox till Bill O'Reilly got canned, he was always number two to Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly gets canned for whatever shenanigans he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right around the time Donald Trump comes in the office, Hannity and Trump are buds.
Yeah, they're golfing buddies.
Yeah. So he has Trump on all the time. Even today, nowadays he still has him on post presidency. And he was getting ratings going through the roof. Right around November last year, Tucker took over. Right after Trump
it all shifted.
Yeah, and I think part of the difference is, other than the fact that Hannity doesn't really bring anything to the table. I watched him last night just because I knew this topic might come up.
we folks, we really were discussing, like, when was the last time Hannity has come up in anything relevant? When has he had an interview or a show or something that is the buzz that people in the political circles were talking about? And we really could not think of anything in months, almost a year.
Yeah, he really has no original thought. I watched him last night, and he's doing exactly what he did during the Clinton years and the Obama years. He's just on there trashing Joe Biden nonstop. It's just like, it's all repetitive.
He's ignoring the stuff that Trump did by bashing Biden and vice versa, and it's just typical stuff.
It's typical, Republican Party rah-rah, While Tucker comes to the plate with a maybe a more controversial show, but by far more interesting. And I think a lot of people recognize that. And then when Tucker's show is over at 9, I think a lot of them are just turning it off, not wanting to deal with Hannity next because they already know what they're going to get. Let me tell you a story about Sean Hannity on the radio.
Oh, here we go. Let me get my drink. My unofficial sponsor of the show, my Dr. Pepper Zero, which I love greatly. And someday they'll pay me for this endorsement.
I primarily try to listen to podcasts, but sometimes I'm too lazy and I just flip on the radio.
It's awful.
There was a period of about a week and a half. I turned Hannity on 3 different days within a week and a half. And each time I turned it on, this was a couple months ago when the election fraud stuff was being talked about, the Georgia law and all that.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay.
And Hannity would keep on going on saying, well, Delaware's law is, and you give this whole litany of things about Delaware's law because it's Biden's state. But the 3 different days, I turn on the radio, and that's exactly what he does. This, I thought they were reruns, man. That's how poor Hannity is, man. I'm like, did I already hear this?
Well, now we know where Todd Schnitt got his outline for, because he does the exact same thing. It's like he does the same thing every single day. It's like these people, like, why does anyone want? First off, there's more stories than we could get to. We could talk for hours. We could literally pick a topic next. I have like 6 different things, Bob, that you could pick from, and that's what we'll talk about next. I have notes and stuff, and it's like there's so much information. So many of these stories are being sucked. All the air is taken out with the Middle East stuff and the COVID stuff. So all this stuff's going on. How is it that Hannity couldn't even accidentally, though, fall backwards into something relevant? That's still just amazing to me. Like accidentally. I the right guest on something.
I honestly believe he's just not that bright. I'm not trying to be
such a fan. You're such a fan.
No, but I've been watching this since the mid '90s, or listening. He's been around a long time, and he's not very good. I don't know why I keep on going back. I think it's for material, I guess. But
let me tell you, I asked someone about Hannity because we were talking about it, and he said my response to this person was, "He's like a broken record." Mm-hmm. There you go.
It is.
So that was this person's opinion of him in that show or whatever. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't watch it.
Horrible. It's horrible. It really is.
Yeah, I don't watch it. I be the first to admit, but I don't watch any of them. I don't. I think the last time, we had cable. Oh my gosh, years, and it was pretty much after. So I want to say it's probably around 2016 or 17, and I flipped on like the Fox channel, and then I switched to MSNBC, and they were talking about the difference of the topics were so radically different that neither side are talking about anything that's related to the other one. Like I was like, wow, it was such a big shock, and I'm like, I'm just done. It's all about throwing red meat to the people that have the letter after your name, and I just can't be a part of it. I don't have any desire.
And just another quick comparison between him and Tucker is even not only does Tucker just cover a wider variety of topics, more interesting, but compare the guest list, right? Hannity is going to have Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Laura Trump. You turn on Tucker, it's Glenn Greenwald, Douglas Murray, the guy you just talked about.
Dave Rubin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're gonna see some different voices that are not part of the same shtick, sort of, over and over and over again. I got you. Yeah, so that's true. I mean, like I said, he hasn't even accidentally been relevant.
No. He's horrible. But I got to give a hat tip to him, though, man. He makes so many gazillions of dollars being horrible.
3 million viewers.
Yeah,
he's number 2.
And he's got the number 1 radio show now since Rush died.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's also just criminal. That's criminal.
Well, he makes untold millions every year.
Yeah.
for being mediocre.
So, Bob, what else should we talk about? Because I have stuff, because Alex couldn't join us this week. I have stuff that I kind of want to save for Alex, because it was like, I just really wanted, you and I are going to agree about, like, we could talk about obviously the Texas abortion stuff, but we're going to agree. So that's really not that interesting.
Okay. We could table that for now.
Yeah, I have a ton of like pop culture-y stuff, but I actually wanted to see Snickers' reaction to a couple things because they're so insane that I don't even know how to put it into words. Let me give you an example. Let me find a good picture to share because I don't know how to. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is not bad. So this is just a sample. So this is the female superhero. There we go. So this is a female superhero. Her name is Starfire. So she's drawn to be very beautiful and attractive. She basically wears, scantily clothes. She's super popular. Fans have loved her for years, right? So there's news that broke, and I covered this in detail. This is one of my biggest videos since I went back on YouTube on Pops. They did this. It's for YA, so it's for kids. It's being pushed towards libraries, and it's her daughter is the center of this new story, and it's called "I Am Not Starfire." There she is. That's what she looks like. So that's supposed to be the daughter of the other girl, the other character. Yeah, it's not quite sane. This is the insanity of this art, how awful this is. And then there's these shots like this. This is supposed to be Starfire. This is the shot from look at these crazy drawings of how bad the art is. And this is the drawing. It's just it's taken everybody by shock of how bad this is. This is her. This is supposed to be the daughter of this character. I kid you not. Like it's just she has fangs. Had fangs.
She got cookies too. Mm.
Oh yeah, it's. So my point is, I want to share all this with Snicker because I'm just like, what? So this isn't like a political thing, but it's a cultural thing. Like it's where it's in the culture so bad. And you had asked me, I don't know if it's a couple of weeks ago, it's like, why am I surprised or why? And I'm not totally surprised, but I'm surprised that money doesn't win out. I'm surprised that someone doesn't want to make money now. And I've been given a theory on this, and this is just us talking. Because Disney bought Marvel and because Warner Brothers owns DC Comics, the big two, they can treat this as like a line item. And even if they lose money, they make so much money on the product, the intellectual property, the IP. So for instance, they'll sell more action figures and toys and such at Target than they will issues of Batman 1000. So they don't care. Like, so in other words, so it's like, yeah, that line item is losing money, but their intellectual property is not. So yeah, they might lose some millions on Black Widow, but if they sold how many millions of dollars on Chinese-made Black Widow action figures, that at the end of the day, they don't care. Yeah, and I'm like, sense. There's probably some truth to that. It probably kind of makes sense. Corporations kind of work like that. So yeah, this is the kind of crap. And what's weird though is that this is like, anyway, you can read it. I have a video that you guys can watch. I don't even want to spoil the video because I was like, there's so many curse words in this. It's so awful. I'm like, this is not for little girls. I'm like, oh, whatever. So, I mean, I have a ton of that kind of stuff. I don't know. What else is on your mind before I?
Well, right. I just sent a private chat to you a link.
Oh, all right. Let me get to that.
Another Australia story. I thought it was.
Oh no! Come on.
No, but it's not related to COVID.
No, it's fine. I understand.
But it's just as wacky.
This goes in line with what we talked about last week. We talked about their emergency surveillance stuff. That they basically are cracking down on social media and how you use it and all of that.
Well, here.
Facebook users liable for all comments under their posts, according to the court. That is insane.
Yep.
You know how many Facebook groups have to be shut down immediately? Like you couldn't have Occupy Democrats. Like that would be gone.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Australia's High Court, roughly the equivalent of the US Supreme Court, has ruled that Facebook users are responsible for the content of complete strangers who post defamatory comments on their post. The ruling upholds a June 19th ruling by the Supreme Court of New South Wales, according to Australia's largest city of Sydney. And it runs counter to how virtually everyone thinks about liability on the internet. Wow.
I told you, man, it gets wackier and wackier.
The question before the High Court was the definition of, quote, publisher, something that isn't easily defined in Australian law or anybody's law. So here's this from ABC. The court found that by creating a public Facebook page and posting content, the outlets had facilitated, encouraged, and thereby assisted in the publication of comments from a third-party Facebook users, and they were therefore publishers of those comments. So in other words, I have a Pops page, and I would be responsible for curating comments according to whose standard? I don't know what the standard is. Like if Facebook's not making me take it down, what standard is the standard? I don't know what my standard is.
Maybe one of the comments offends some third party. Who knows?
I'm trying to get to it where if the court gave us anything to go on. It's talking about fabrication of stories, talking bad about people, those kinds of things. But I'm not seeing, oh wait, look at this. People like Tucker Carlson of Fox News are notorious for this kind of behavior. Oh no, Tucker! Whoa, wait a minute, Tucker. He's making the random story that we just threw up at the last minute.
Notice they don't mention Hannity.
Yeah, Hannity is not mentioned. I can search, and I guarantee we will not find Hannity. Let's see. I'm not getting any. It did not determine whether Facebook comments were defamatory. It's just that it's all about this case. But it was like, this doesn't really give us a whole lot to go on. It's just this ambiguous. You can be accountable for someone else's behavior.
That's true. And where does that take you? Where does that go? I'm not sure, but it's got a scary tinge to it.
What makes me off faith? I don't want to do with this nonsense.
So
and it's funny too because like
if you're doing pops on Pops Culture and I go onto YouTube or Facebook or whatever, and yeah, Brandon Joe's blah 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 blah, and what happens if I put a third party's name in there? Can you get sued for it because of my comment? I don't know. But you're responsible for curating.
I don't know how any of this works.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's funny because one of the things that we had really a lot of success with, especially when the Global Dispatch was doing its thing, was we just gotta let it go, man. We had all sorts of crazy behavior, and I tried to keep up with censoring and filtering and editing some of the profanity and some of that graphicness, but even that got away from you. When you have certain posts, you're getting 20, 40 comments. I mean, you can't keep up. But the idea that I'm responsible for the comments, to me, it just basically is going to shut things down because you're just not going to want to manage a page. You're not going to want to have comments turned on posts. You're just going to have less interaction and opportunity to do those kinds of things.
It would be the end of social media, essentially.
Yeah, puppy photo. Well, no, because you could still say, this puppy looks like transgender so-and-so. I mean, I can just, no matter what you can come up with, you can come up with a scenario where this can be, I guess, offensive because I don't know what their law is. This article talks about all this, but it didn't tell me like what. Maybe if I click this June 19th article and see.
Yeah, that's I think that's the original case.
Yeah, let me.
But I didn't read it. I have to admit, I didn't have time.
Let me just let's share that, folks, so we can be on the same page and see if there's anything that next. Oh, geez, come on, folks. All right. So this is the original ruling. And oh geez, it's gonna not let me get rid of that box. Nope, it is not. Let's see. I don't even know what's happening to that picture. Let's see. So it's talking about Facebook. Defamatory content should be held liable to fight. None of the news organizations publish the content. So in other words, this was an attack on Sky News. Wow, they included everybody in this lawsuit. Good night. So anyway, so they made false allegations that this guy attacked a Salvation Army officer, leaving him blind in one eye. So he never asked for the comments on Facebook to be taken down. So this person didn't even ask for the comments to be taken down. Let's see. Publishers are only liable for comments in which the subject of the defamation had asked them to be removed but failed to do so. So that makes sense. So the normal law is, this is a defamatory comment, please take it down. You don't take it down. I prove it's defamatory, so therefore I can sue you. That makes sense. That's how the law would make sense in our rational world. Quote, the primary purpose of operation of public Facebook page is to optimize readership of the newspaper, whether hard copy or digital, broadcast, or optimize revenue. The exchange of ideas on a public Facebook page is a mechanism, or one of the mechanisms by which this is achieved. It defies the belief that the media organizations are held responsible for comments. Yeah, it basically is a defamation case, but somehow if the person, so basically the person didn't ask them to be removed, but there's still defamation. So somehow almost like a third party could say, I'm suing because I found them defend. I don't know. This is such a weird Pandora's box. I'm not quite sure I understand how it's going to play out. It's a weird photo. I don't even want to get to that nonsense. I have no idea what's happening. This photos. These papers, man, overseas stuff, man, it's crazy.
Oh man, you can't get better. You can't get wackier news though.
But it's every day, and it's Australia, man. That's another Australia story. So
I know, and I just stumbled across it before I came on, so I was only able to skim it real quick, and I said, "This is news talk worthy."
What? So how could we even keep up with the curation? How on earth could we even? I guess you would just turn off all of your comments and put everything under review, and you would just hold everything until they were reviewed, and you would have to have a person or people that review everything and run it through.
Right. And
does Facebook allow you to do that?
Not that I'm aware of.
I wonder.
But like on the website, you can control it. But
you can even do it at the article level. Like if you have an article, like which is, by the way, a bug that was not in the original Global Dispatch history, whenever back when the day. Now you can turn it off for a particular article, so you don't have to have comments on your whole site. You can say, well, for this article, it's getting out of control. Bam, turn it off. I wonder on my settings. I'm just going to my Facebook page as we continue to talk this through. Like, I wonder if you can just turn, or you can have a. Because I know you can with groups. Like I have a group on one of the things, and it has like a keyword alert system and a post review system. So if you use certain words, we're not even going to let you try to put it up. Like it's just, you're just told no. But then if you have any post, whether it be a photo or whatever, then it just all gets curated. So I assume, and I'm not finding it because I don't know where to look, and it's like a maze. Anything on Facebook is just an absolute maze of what you can do. I'm not going to be able to find this right now. It would take me, I'll waste an hour of my life trying to find the settings on how to do this nonsense. I don't even know. So,
all right, Burrow.
What's going on, man? Anything else going on in the world of outbreak news, the worm and germ guy, and all that? The website's cranking, man. Website's cranking. People want to know about worms and germs.
Website is doing good. I'm putting a lot of work into it. Let's see. I was supposed to have a podcast today, but I had a no-show, so that's being. It was a calendar issue, so we're going to reschedule for next week. I just never know what story is going to take off. Sometimes it's the most benign thing, but nothing takes off like back in the DOB days where you have some
the blue desk O'Brien days. It crashes a website like every 20 minutes. You're like, I don't even know how to keep this website. I cannot afford to keep the website up because it would crash as soon as we would publish a story. But then it would be an old story would crash the site. So it was like we didn't have the revenue coming in to keep up with the site. It was an insane problem to have in 2010 to 2012, basically.
But it was just these crazy stories, and they would just shoot through nothing like that happens on Outbreak. It's just even Steven, 30,
McHale, baby.
30, 40, 50. If I look at it right now, 62. Right. I mean, and it is Kevin McHale. Just keep on feeding the beast. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that for over a decade now.
Sure, well, that's good. Well, I got two people kind of like we've got it worked out, agreeing to come on Watch Your Story, which will be my new live stream on that channel. I haven't done a Watch Your Story in a while, so I'll be looking to try to figure that out, because it doesn't look like I'm going to have anything worked out for tomorrow, so I may look at next week and try to do that, because I'd like to be able to get to something where I can get some content done there and be able to publish. I'd like to be able to get it done so far in advance. I'd be able to have one every single week, like starting in October, but I don't know that I'm going to get it all worked out in time. But it's really great. I'm going to have Stephen Vincent back on. He's an author, covered his book, detailed his story. It was really a great one. A great chance to talk to him again. And then another Pastor Garrett Hamlin, who came down to Florida, worked with Loving Hands Ministries, ultimately felt like he was called to go into ministry full time, and now they've started a new church in the greater Tampa Bay area. So great stories to share. There's tons of stuff out there to do. So just trying to line that up. So this whole StreamYard thing's kind of changed all of the equations. So it's
have you done an interview this way yet?
No, I mean, I don't count our show.
Besides being a snicker, I mean,
yeah, I haven't really. I mean, I could. I talk to my daughters.
It's a great platform. It's just fantastic. It's so.
Yeah. So folks, just so you know, and this is like, again, we're not getting paid for any of these things, including my Dr. Pepper Zero. StreamYard really is easy to use. Like, this is super, super easy to use. It takes a little getting used to. It is not particularly user friendly, like switching tabs. Like if you're trying to switch from stories and tabs and tabs and tabs. I did find a way. So here's a tip. Try it out for yourself. So one guy, instead of trying to share the video and remembering to do audio and some of those weird things we had a problem with last week, he tweets it and just shares the Twitter page. I don't know. So I actually had that queued up on that abortion story I was going to tell you about, because I had it queued up. It was on Twitter, because I was like, I don't know where. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to download the video for us to watch 30 seconds. And it's just too much work for 30 seconds. So I'll try this Twitter thing, see if I can get it to work. I don't know. But yeah, so yeah, the StreamYard's great. Folks, if you just want to talk to your family, it is a great way. That's why I talked to my daughters, like I streamed, talked to my grandkids, and then it saves the files for you. You can save the little video file. And I have kind of a YouTube channel we don't talk about, which is basically like the family stuff, pictures from the farm, videos of the kids, that kind of stuff, just for posterity stakes. I figure, well, it's a way to save it. It's less of these giant files on my hard drives on my phones. So
good stuff.
Anything else going on this week for you, Bob?
No, bro. I'll be talking. The audience probably may not be aware, or yourself, but September is Brain Aneurysm Month. Brain Aneurysm Awareness Month. And Friday, I'll be talking to a lady from Florida who lost her 14-year-old daughter who had dwarfism to a brain aneurysm. So she started a foundation, and they're funding a lot of good research. And brain aneurysm is a kind of a scary thing if you think about it.
Absolutely.
And yeah. So it's a not an outbreak type story, but I found it interesting. And DeSantis did a proclamation last week declaring September as Brain Aneurysm Awareness Month. So there you go, Ron DeSantis.
All right.
Brain aneurysms.
Well, I wouldn't want to tease the crazy stuff I have set aside, but I'm tempted to.
If it's for Snicker, I gotta get rolling anyway, bro.
All right, my friend. But well, listen, thanks for hanging out with me, and we have a good show, and it's a good time as always, folks. Again, comment, sub, share, all that fun stuff. No matter where you're at, Facebook or YouTube, we appreciate it so much. Email us if you like, and thanks for your time.
Good night, everybody.